Welcome to The Growth Switch, the podcast where we dive into the strategies, struggles, and breakthroughs of bold business leaders. I'm your host, Jules Fox, growth strategist and lead content creator at Aries Media. I'm here today to uncover how today's top brands are scaling, overcoming challenges, and unlocking sustainable success. Now, for those of you just tuning in, Aries Media helps grow successful brands with comprehensive, hands-on support for sales, business development, and performance marketing. Go ahead and drop growth into the comments section if you want to do that. Now, today we are fortunate enough to have a really wonderful guest, Emily LaRuche. She's the founder and CEO of back office Betties, where she's redefining how small law firms scale by replacing admin chaos with streamlined, high-touch virtual support that actually helps lawyers grow professionally, personally, get all that stuff done with. Emily, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Jules.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So how did you come up with this really unique business? It's very targeted, so what was the inception behind the company?
So it didn't start that way. It started out working in big banking, and I had a short break to line up a bunch of home services. And these guys are notoriously bad for answering phones, showing up on time, being organized, not showing their crack, being sloppy in their dress. And so I was like, you know what? These guys are kind of a hot mess, and I'm no rocket surgeon, but I think I can answer a phone. So, I said, okay, let me see if I can do this. And I started the call center with the intention of helping these really small mom and pop local shops. We kind of took on anyone with a pulse and a wallet. Over time, as we grew our client base, it became unsustainable to be able to really go deep, because most answering services, when you get one, I know you've had that experience where you can tell you are not talking to the doctor's office or whoever it is you're calling. It's bad, right?
Yeah.
So I said, well, we could do better. Let's learn a little more about the businesses. We're actually going to train our team on every business that they're working with. So it got hard to sell the power of the Rotovac, hot steam carpet cleaning system 1 minute, and then a law firm consult the next, and actually understanding much about both industries. And so I asked my team, I created a little litmus test we still use today. Who values us and pays on time? Who can we scale and grow the company with? So what's best for the company? What's best for the client? And then who do you guys love working with? I was kind of surprised, but across the board, my team said it was the attorneys. So another lesson I had to learn in business is to kind of sit down, shut up, and not be domineering, and really listen to my team and take their feedback. So we said, okay, guys, let's do this. The riches are in the niches. We can offer the most benefit and really scale out what we do for law firms. So from this day forward, that's what we do. And from there, it was like every day we ask, what else can we do to help the life of a small law firm owner easier? And really expanded our services from there.
Yeah. I think that's absolutely the way to go about it. And clearly you're experiencing some massive success with that. So now you offer more of even a full scale legal admin support. And so it sounds like, you said, hey, let's find the industry that works. And then you also went beyond that to say, let's offer them even more. Why don't you get even deeper into what you offer and why that's helpful for them?
Yeah. So we started off with the call center, and then from there, we noticed a lot of times the attorneys are having a paralegal, for example, wearing, 5 different hats in the role. They may do accounting, client services, paralegal work, answer the phones. And I thought, as I needed a C-suite, I decided to go fractional. And so I did a complete fractional C-suite of executives, which, would have cost me nearly over $1 million a year. It ends up saving me about 60% of the cost by doing it that way. And I thought, these law firms, the smaller ones we work with, they can't afford to have a client services, a paralegal, a receptionist. What if we roll out the same type of service for them, fractional, and they can use experts at what they're doing on a fractional basis? And so we started off with that. We mainly have a lot of paralegals, and these are all US based. They work in the state. They've worked in a law firm doing the type of law that they're working on. So they're really highly experienced experts at what they do. I've just become a really big believer in the fractional workforce.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The way that you can use that to help them reduce their costs and get, scale with even greater benefits is brilliant. So what would you say is one of the biggest bottlenecks that's preventing small law firms from scaling? and how are you helping them break through that?
I think this is a really simple exercise is to start with an accountability chart. It's similar to the org chart, but we're going to list out the top 3 accountabilities. And we need to think about every role within any company. So we work with law firms, but I'm going to say any company. So you've got your CEO, you've got technology, you've got all the different roles, finance, you may have a client services account manager type person. And so doesn't matter if you can afford these people, doesn't matter if you have them. What matters is somebody is doing that work right now. And so I tell everyone, start there. I want you to map out your entire accountability chart of all the roles within the company. And then I want you to start filling in the names of who's currently doing it. And so when I first did this, there were about 5 seats that I was in. There was about 5 seats that one of my top people were in, and we needed to get out of those seats. And so I say you start there and you look at what's the first and easiest thing that I can offload. So for me, doing anything finance related is a horrible idea. It is my kryptonite. It is not my superpower. So we kind of started one thing at a time. And over a period of a couple years, I got myself out of every seat except for the owner's box and CEO.
Yeah, well, I mean, which is great. Yeah, I mean, the more you can replace yourself and all of the functions that you can do, not only the better you can scale your own company, but the more able you are to help other people do that for their companies. Yeah.
Yeah. And to your point, the biggest mistake people make is they'll say, well, I'm going to hire someone 40 hours a week and they're a hot body to come in and sit down, and I'm going to sit them in 6 seats. Well, nobody's going to be incredible at all of these different roles. And so my belief is when you have someone who loves what they're doing, they're amazing at it, they're going to knock it out faster, they're going to be happier, they're going to stay longer. So why wouldn't I have someone in finance at 10 hours a week or 5 hours a week, 10 hours a month, whatever it is? Then I can have a paralegal 10 hours a week just doing what they're incredible at. And so I think the big mistake we make is we just want a hot body and then we expect them to be incredible at all these things and end up disappointed.
Yeah, trying to train people to do too many things, trying to expect people to fulfill too many tasks, and ultimately having these people not only not be all that good at it, but not enjoying it. I think enjoyment is a critical factor there, and that kind of speaks a little bit to personal transformation, which I think is a big deal to your leadership philosophy and the culture that you're building at Back Office Betties. Tell me a little bit more about that.
My personal transformation. That's happened a few times in life, but I had a rough childhood, didn't grow up with a silver spoon, got into a lot of trouble, was a failure in school. I was probably, if there was a vote, I would have been most likely not to succeed, most likely to end up homeless. And, I did end up homeless a little bit at 18. So, as far as transformation goes, it's required a lot of personal growth and digging deep. And so, when you're a business owner, I'm sure, we have to learn, if we want to be successful, humility. I had to learn to humble myself and admit that I don't know what I'm doing and ask other more experienced people for help, which is so intimidating. Walking into a company that seems like it's thriving, making millions, and to be a little company and say, I have no idea what I'm doing. Can I buy you lunch and will you teach me a thing or two? That was really transformative. And what I was most surprised about is how willing very busy, very successful entrepreneurs are to open their doors to you, open their books to you, teach you the ropes. It's a really great community of people willing to support. Being growth minded, I have to constantly be reading, constantly learning, constantly stay on top of, what's happening out there in the industry.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that type of diversity creates stronger people, though. And I think that if you don't understand it, if you really don't truly understand problems, if you just do research and have your team say, oh, here's a list of problems, you kind of intellectually get what problems are. But when you've actually experienced adversity for yourself, you really deeply understand failure a little bit more, and you really deeply understand the root of these problems more and why it's so critical to overcome them so that you can have a successful business so things can run smoothly.
Yeah, definitely. And, one feedback I hear from entrepreneur friends is they say, Emily, I've never seen anyone implement like you do. And what they don't know is I'm not super and amazing and great. I have a giant fat chip on my shoulder from growing up being the loser, growing up being homeless. There was a time where, my husband at the time, I went without a paycheck for 2 years and I was the breadwinner and we were struggling. There was nothing under the tree for the kids for Christmas. He's working full time, driving for Uber just to try and make ends meet. Sometimes I'd have to borrow his paycheck to make payroll. I mean, it was hard. And he said to me, Emily, please, can we just call it a day, just admit it didn't work and go back to work. And that chip on my shoulder is what keeps me going. That chip on my shoulder is when I learn something new, I implement right away, because the humiliation of going back and being what everyone expects me to be and to say I failed was never an option. I refused to fail.
Yeah. I mean, I think that right there is the mentality that successful founders have, is that, in life, it's very rare fairy tale scenario where things just work out. There are many situations where they don't work out, hundreds of them sometimes before they do. Yeah. And also it makes for great storytelling, and it makes for a great basis of comparison, because now you guys are significantly more successful. Who's your ideal customer profile? Who's the ideal person who could get the most benefit from you in your company?
So a law firm owner with a team of 5 and under is typically ideal, because we can kind of plug in some of the gaps that they have. We work with a ton of solos as well. That's probably the bulk of our answering service base, because we provide 60 hours of reception coverage for as little as like $400 a month. So for a really small micro law firm, that's a really great value prop to have a 60-hour receptionist who can schedule your meetings and get all of that off of you when you're just trying to go at it alone.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Now, what sort of, how do you meet these people? How do you, obviously, if somebody's watching this podcast, we're going to have all the links down below and they can find you, but how are you finding them? Because a lot of times people who are struggling, you have to, in this world of business, you have to go find them and let them know what you can do. So what's your methodology behind that? How do you help grow your own company?
For many years, we did not have a marketing team, did not have a marketing department or budget. So it was totally guerrilla, bootstrapped. And I really loved the Chet Holmes Dream 100 list, where he said, this is my list of 100 people that I want to make a client, and relentlessly pursued them and only them, and didn't get distracted. So I did something similar, except for me, it was who will make great partners for me? Who is already showing up where my clients are hanging out? And so I went to, like, lawyerists, for example. There's a lawyerist lab for attorneys. They run like a media company for attorneys. And so in the very beginning, I offered one of the writers for them, he's an attorney, free service in order to write a review. And this was early on. The review was not even very good. I think it was like a C. And I want our services to be an A, and that's usually what we get reported on now. But that review provided us a client incoming for quite a long time. I did any kind of networking. I did PR as much as I could, just getting out there and bootstrapping and spreading the word. We now have the marketing team. LinkedIn's a great resource. Even Facebook is still working for us. So creating great content is kind of my MO when it comes to prospecting for clients. And then word of mouth. I call it word of mouth, since we're all digital. Word of mouth.
Yeah, word of mouth, digital word of mouth. And I think great content is a key thing, because, there's plenty of content out there, especially with the advent of AI. We're just seeing more and more content, a plethora of content, but it's not great content. I would say a plethora of mediocre content is really what we end up with. It's not bad, but it's not great. So what makes for a great content? What makes for a great connection point between your thoughts and your ideas and the person who needs to hear what you have to say?
I think what I'm really good at is the operations and the culture side of things. And so I like to contribute in that way. And my idea of content, it drives me nuts when it's like clearly pitch driven content. Like, this is why we're great. This is why a service like it's like, no, give these people a tool that they can use. So when I go to a talk, I want a tool that I can walk away and implement. And maybe I'm a freak like that, because, I feel like I don't get anything if I don't have some kind of tool I can implement into my life. And so that's my goal when I'm out there talking or producing content, is what is a tool that this law firm owner or even any business owner can implement into their business, and it's going to make a difference. Because what I've learned is, I thought like there was this magic pill, and I would walk in the room of entrepreneurs and feel like the stupidest person in the room, no business experience or degree. And I just thought they had something I didn't. And it's not true. What I realized is it's those micro changes that you make, applied over time consistently and continuing to implement. And then all of a sudden you're an overnight success.
Yeah, it takes 10 years to become an overnight success, right?
Yep. We're on year 11. So woohoo, we made it.
That's awesome. Yeah. So, and it's true. I've been to those founders conventions. I continue to go to them. I'm all about growth. I'm all about, deducing how these people are progressing. And that imposter syndrome is real. That whole, it's interesting that 80, 90% of the founders in there might feel like I don't belong here. I'm not smart enough. I'm not good enough. My company is not far enough along. But that's not necessarily the case. So if you had a piece of advice for anybody starting out, hopefully in a business not competing with yours, what would that piece of advice for new founders be?
One thing is, I say leverage your free resources and ask people to lunch. I love the book Never Eat Alone. Just hang out with people. So I'm here in Austin and we have a paddleboarding group of entrepreneurs. I get some of the best advice just hanging out on the paddleboard, hearing about something new someone did in their business. So, we have this group that meets, about once a month or every other month, and we just hang out and have fun. It's not, there's no discussion topic. It's nothing. It's just get yourself out there.
Yeah, people actually engaging with other people versus what you said is that like hyper focused and targeted content that's always about sales and stuff like that. We don't always want to talk about sales. We don't necessarily always want to talk about that kind of thing. Sometimes it's nice to just connect as humans.
Yeah, and I joined the Entrepreneurs Organization Accelerator program back in 2016. When I walked in, I really was the stupidest person in the room. Everyone had more experience. They knew what they were doing. But it was really weird for me going from a place where I'm out networking and selling how great everything is to being in a room where they want you. One of our mottos is like, get naked fast. I mean, if the walls are crumbling, we need to know so we can help you. And so it was really a weird shift to just completely get naked and be like, you guys, I'm failing. I'm afraid I'm gonna go out of business like within a month or so. And that first meeting, they, kind of showed me like some areas through experience sharing of how they changed some billing models and did different things. I went in and implemented what I learned that day, and it saved my business because we were literally almost out of money and going under. And what the changes I made gave me the runway to last another 3 months. And I'm like, okay, I got 3 more months to figure this out and figure out how to get my books right and everything and keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, say you were given like a magic wand and you could just grow your company by removing one particular roadblock, whatever's preventing you from, so where you were, you've grown that, you're where you are. Say you want to 10x your growth over the next few years. How would you do it?
I'd probably talk to you because this is your area of expertise.
Yeah.
I coach a lot of businesses and even I do some teaching for inmates to entrepreneurs. The number one struggle I have and across the board is awareness. And so getting our name and who we are and what we do in front of the clients that are right for that, I think that's the biggest problem every business has.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it actually goes hand in hand. You have brand marketing and performance marketing, and a lot of people try to skip one and just do the other. And they'll say, well, we don't throw a lot of money into ads because we're very much into branding and stuff like that. Well, that's fantastic. You want people to know you. You want people to have heard of you, but you also need them to then put it in front of their eyes. They need to see you somehow. And then other people are like, well, we don't need to do the branding thing. What we're going to do is just show people what we have. And it's like, well, great. But if they don't know you, they're not necessarily going to take action. So I think, yeah, having those really intermesh and marry is a critical component.
Yeah. And I think content's a huge part of that because when we're adding value, we're not just showing an ad. We're not just saying buy from me. We're trying to demonstrate in everything that we do that we're invested in the growth and success of your company, for your family, for your community. It's our little butterfly effect. It's not just about come do business with us. I'm invested in giving you the things that I've learned that help make us successful so that you can become successful and make a big impact where you're at.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So, how do people find you? Where would you like them best to interact with you?
Probably our website's probably the number one place people go, backofficebetties.com. We've got a lot of resources and blogs there and information. Otherwise, yeah, LinkedIn, Emily LaRuche. I'm on there as well.
And for the audience, those links are going to be right down below if you want to click on them. Emily, thank you so much for joining the podcast. It's been fantastic having you on. I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Jules.